Hello, welcome everyone. This is a special segment for questions worth pondering. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Um, I have this segment of targeting the innocent, and I want to talk through some of the things that are happening with our children and what they're doing, attacking our children, really. They're targeting our children. And today I'll be talking about indoctrination. So, with that, I'll go ahead and get started. I just want to let everybody know that this is just a first part of talking about indoctrination, because I think indoctrination is uh, a big part of the attack with our kids. And so this will sort of be an intro, and then I'll dive deep in future episodes. Uh, but with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have a lot of things, different things I want to cover. But I think the very first thing that I'd like to do is just talk about the background and history of how we got to where we are today. Kids are being indoctrinated in our schools, whether it's K through 12 or even in the universities. They're really targeting the kids in the universities. So I've got a little clip here. This is Alex Newman with he was on an Epic Times show talking about this. So I'm going to play that real quick, and then we'll get into some of the other things. Hey, we've got Magnolia. Hey, Magnolia. Good morning. Good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. We love that you're with us, Magnolia. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'll be right back.
The schools aren't what they used to be when I was a child, and they're getting more and more woke. They're getting less and less focused on academics, and all of that is true, right? It gets worse with every passing generation. But if you go back to the beginning, you understand the mindset, the beliefs, and the goals of the people who actually created this system. All of it makes perfect sense. And so what I tell people is, look, the system is not broken. You just have to understand what was the purpose of the system. And thankfully, Josh, this isn't something we have to speculate about. The people who dreamed up this system, the architects of this system, the people who put it all into place were relatively open about their views. John Dewey, who's almost universally considered the founding father of America's public education system, this is a guy who was an aficionado of the Soviet Union. And we have the public record of this. He wrote articles about how wonderful he thought the Soviet system was. You go back a little further, you have a Horace Mann, who actually really was, I would say, the pioneer in terms of getting the government really involved in education in America. He took his cues from Prussia, which, again, was a dictatorship. They created the first ever education system of the state, by the state, and for the state. You go back a little earlier than that, the guy who first proposed the idea that the government ought to educate children, this was in the early 1800s. His name was Robert Owen, very obscure today, but he was very prominent at the time. And this is a guy who was a full-blown communist. Now, it was before Karl Marx, so this wasn't, a huge movement, but he believed that we should dismantle the family. He wanted to get the children away from their parents so they could be educated to be good, collectivists. He wanted to get rid of private property. And to his credit, he believed so fervently in these ideas, he actually set up a commune to prove how great it would be. Totally failed. And when it failed, he didn't say, wow, maybe communism doesn't work. He said, I know the problem. It's because the government didn't educate these children to be what would later be called, the new Soviet man, right? A collectivist who does everything for the good of the people, so-called. So that's the background in a nutshell there that people need to know.
I find that really interesting that public education in general has a history and background of communists proposing and the education system we have today. So I work in technology, and one of the companies I worked for actually a good chunk of my career was a student information system, a big one in this country. And one of the big things that we talked about at that company was the factory schools and how there's not individualized education and that kind of stuff. So um, it is interesting to kind of learn a little bit about the background, and it makes sense to me because based on what I see. So one of the things you all probably don't know about me personally is I am a mom, and this is uh, one of the reasons going to be digging into this more and exposing some of the indoctrination more, because it happened to me. It happened to my child, and it's very upsetting. Uh, but I want to call it out because back in when my daughter was 7 years old, um, she she came home from school, and she told me that this was back in, I don't know, when was the O.J. Simpson trial? Like 1994, 95, somewhere around there, right? Uh, so they were talking about the O.J. Simpson trial in her class, and I had no idea. She came home and she told me that they voted on whether OJ killed his wife or not. And I was livid. I marched down to the school and I gave him a piece of my mind, and I'm like, "Why are you talking to 7-year-olds about a murder?" You know? Uh Regardless of what you think about OJ Simpson and, you know, that whole debate as to whether or not he killed Nicole, um, it shouldn't have been in the classroom with 7-year-olds, second graders. Uh, then a few years later, she came home and showed me all of these. She had pamphlets for uh, Democrat uh, campaigns. And I'm like, why is that in the school? You know, uh, that was horrible. And so I gave the school a piece of my mind. And then when she was in fifth grade, I decided to homeschool her, and um, I just did it for 1 year. And the reason I did that was not about indoctrination; it was just the schools were so horrible. But because I had moved to Tennessee for I lived in Tennessee for about 5 years, and their school system was not great. So when she got to middle school, uh, there was crazy stuff happening. The kids weren't being watched, and there was shenanigans going on with the kids. So I homeschooled her until I came back to Minnesota, and but she went to college and suddenly became this uh, major leftist, uh, and it was shocking to me. And so I just the education system, the universities, they completely indoctrinated my child, and she now has her own child that's being indoctrinated as well by her and the school system. And this is why I'm doing this. So I just wanted to give you a little background on me and what's going on there. I have a daughter, I have a granddaughter that I love so much, but they're not speaking to me right now because of uh, my stance on certain things. And, you know, I'm finally at a point, this has been going on for the past year. I'm finally at a point where I can start talking about it because it's been very upsetting. Actually, I'm getting emotional now, so I'll move on. But but yeah, so that's why I'm doing this. I am going to be digging in. Today is going to be super high level, understanding the history and background that communists were the ones who put our school system in place. Yes, schools started before that, but we're talking about our modern school system. And basically, it's it's just, well, I've got this clip there. So way back in the late 1990s, when Glenn Beck was, I don't know if you remember when he was on Fox News, he was exposing a lot of this stuff. And one of the things he said as a part of the communist playbook was that they were starting to teach kids that your parents are stupid, that you shouldn't listen to your parents, that you're smarter than them, uh, and etc. So I'm going to play this little clip. It's happening today. This teacher uh, is pretty much saying that now, that your parents are dumb. So I'm going to play this clip, and this is like brainwashing our kids.
Most of y'all parents are dumber than you. I'm going to say that out loud. My parents are freaking dumb. Okay? And the minute I figured that out, the world opens up. You don't have to do everything your parents say, and you don't have to believe everything your parents believe, because most likely you're smarter than them.
What's the likelihood that this lady's got kids? Pause it, Rob. What's the likelihood this lady's got kids? I'd love to know if she's got kids.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, the parents need to know what's going on in these schools. They almost should put like live cameras in so you can check in and attend the class with your kids and see what they're telling your kids and all of that. Thank you, Magnolia. Magnolia says, I'm so very sorry, Nevs. It's been I don't want to make this show about me, but I wanted to explain why I'm so passionate about covering this stuff and exposing it. But yeah, can you believe that teacher? And you know, she's like cool and kind of funny, and they're laughing, and it's attractive to kids, you know. I just try to think of myself back when I was a kid, you know. Over the years, I've grown up trusting teachers, anybody in authority, trusting teachers, trusting doctors, trusting police people. Um, you know, anyone in authority, I was taught to respect and trust those in authority. And so kids are very impressionable. They do trust the people that are teaching them. And so it's almost like we need to be maybe teaching our own kids ourselves. Homeschooling is definitely an option, but it's really hard. I know. You know, as my daughter was growing up, I homeschooled her for 1 year and it was tough. I had to work full time on top of that. So, um, I get it. It's hard, but I know that there's some consortiums of like homeschooled parents that get together and help each other, and they get their kids together for socializing, that kind of stuff. But I do want to get into a little bit of homeschooling. Let me see. Where do I want to go? Homeschooling is under attack because they know it's so powerful. So before I start, you know, homeschooling had been a trend for, I don't know, the last 20 or 30 years. It's been starting to get more and more popular. But after COVID, parents actually found out what their kids were learning in school because they were at home learning. The parents had to be at home working if they could, if they weren't like, you know, had to be out in a restaurant or be at a hospital as a doctor or nurse or something or police officer. But parents suddenly were hearing what their kids were being taught in school and they were getting a little more involved. And so now, because of COVID and parents learning more, parents started fighting back. And I will have a clip on that. But what I want to highlight here is that homeschooling is now under attack. They really do want to be able to indoctrinate our children, and if you want to homeschool your child, it goes against that. So this article is from KATV, and it talks about how New York professor claims homeschooling is being used to indoctrinate kids. So we want to highlight that kids are being indoctrinated, and what they do is turn it around and say that homeschooling is indoctrinating. So if you want to push, your values onto your children, they're considering that as indoctrination. And we've just got another comment from Magnolia. It's disgraceful. So many parents are not aware of what's happening in our children's classrooms. It's so true, Magnolia. Very true. So, but now I don't know what the date on this one was. Let me just get rid of the reader views. This article was just posted March 18th. So it's fairly new. But basically, they're calling homeschooling students victims of indoctrination, if you can believe it. So what they say is one of the reasons that they all go after education, and one of the reasons that schools are being targeted, a big thing is to destroy liberal democratic models of secular education. Get everybody out of the system, put them in homeschool so they can be indoctrinated. If you can believe this. And then it says schools encourage community values, which people supportive of dictatorial beliefs seek to erode, according to the professor. So when they say community values, they're talking about society and the good of the collective rather than individual achievements. It goes back to all of that communistic mindset, if you will. Some of the things that they're teaching in the schools is CRT. And they say, it's to give the history of the Black students and racism and all of that. But what's happening is kids are coming home crying, saying that they're horrible because they're white. So it's having a reverse sort of discrimination impact, and racism of any form should not be acceptable, even if it's against whites, if it's against blacks, if it's against any race, because guess what? We are all one human race. There is no separate races. We just happen to have different DNA, which gives us different colored eyes, different kind of shades of skin, different shapes of our bodies. We could be short or tall or, whatever. So we are one human race. And for schools to be pushing that there's white privilege and white this or white that is absolutely uncalled for, and definitely should be fighting back against any of that. Moxie, there's an author of a CRT book that says that the only remedy for racism is more racism. Can you believe that? That's ridiculous. That is not the remedy. The remedy is to be colorblind and to, judge people based on, like MLK said, the content of their character. So with that, I'm going to show how I have a clip about how parents are fighting back. There are so many clips of parents fighting back, which is awesome because that means parents are waking up and they're understanding what's happening in our schools. It's not just CRT. There's the whole transgender movement. They're pushing kids to want to change their gender, and they are rewriting history. I'll talk about that after. I'm going to go ahead and play this parents clip.
Time to dust dust off the history books and see about the remedies for this lawless school board. Parents all over America need to fight corruption in our public schools. Stop the woke agenda of perversion and tyranny. Better yet, stop calling it woke. Call it what it is, communism. We want your communist boot off the necks of our children. Terry McAuliffe let his mask slip when he said parents have no say. It was the turning point. We, the parents, awakened and handed him defeat. Obama was right. Elections have consequences. Dr. Brabrand praised students this week for their compliance. But at the same time, FCPS itself gives no compliance with the governor's authority. They mask their retaliation under the guise of protecting our kids. You don't protect them. You demonstrated that by providing our kids with perversion and calling it beneficial. Now you're stifling children with indefinite mask wearing. Look at the harm you've done. Kids are failing, speech delayed, depressed, and suicide rates soared. The little ones have never even seen their classmates' smiles. Mandates are not the principles this nation was founded upon. Our forefathers came here to escape tyranny. They would have tarred and feathered all of you. We're not going to be patient with tyrants. We're not going to wait patiently while FCPS gives parents the middle finger. You all should be fired for your retaliation. Refusing to follow an executive order in Virginia has a 1-year jail sentence. How about it, officers? Going to do anything about these lawless lawbreakers sitting before you? Time to dust off the history books and see about the remedies for this lawless school board. Parents all over America need to fight corruption in our public schools. Stop the woke agenda of perversion and tyranny. Better yet, stop calling it woke. Call it what it is, communism. We want your communist boot off the necks of our children.
Get that communist boot off the necks of our children. It's on there strong. And I love to see parents fighting back. We need more of that. We saw a lot of it in 2021, 2022, and even 2023, but it's been less and less that I've been seeing a lot of that, yet they're still pushing that agenda and indoctrination in our schools. One of the things, and I wanted to be able to pull this up. I wonder if I have. No, I don't think I do. One of the things that was proposed, and you can't get to it anymore. So whenever a bill is proposed in Congress, whether it's through the House or through the Senate, Congress.gov keeps. Actually, I'm gonna show you guys. I'm gonna pull this up in my browser. Let's see. But what happens is that Congress keeps those bills out there, even if they're inactive or they don't pass. You can still see the history of these bills. So there was a bill introduced that you can no longer access. And I'm just going to pull my browser back up and get to this photo. So what they proposed, this is what you get when you try to go to this bill, that Congress.gov is currently experiencing technical difficulties, but it wasn't. So I kept trying to open the bill. I tried to open subpages of the bill. And then I just went to Congress.gov and navigated around. I can get to every other bill. But this bill was introduced in the Senate, and it was actually bipartisan bill that wanted to update and codify into law a new civics education. So if you think about civics, that's where the kids learn about the separate branches of government, how, we've got the judicial branch and we've got the executive, and then we have Congress. And it just teaches you about how the country operates. Well, what they wanted to change in the civics classes was to teach activism. And it was basically wanting to require activism, political activism. And you can't find it now. I'm going to keep digging and try to find more of that information, and I'll post it. But yeah, so because I wanted to talk about it on my show here, and I couldn't find it. Not even on the Wayback Machine. It was removed, if you can believe it. So I can share that link with you guys if you're curious and want to do research too. I just want to follow up. Moxie had talked about that CRT book that talked about the remedy for racism is more racism. She found the author. She couldn't think of the author, but it's Ibram Kendi. Who is Ibram Kendi? Moxie, do you know? I don't even know if I've heard of that name. So, all right. So I'm going to continue. There was this article 3 weeks ago. So there's a big push to remove these pornographic books from the classroom and from classroom libraries, school libraries. Kids can still access these books in public libraries and whatnot, but these books talk about transgender, but they have very graphic depictions of sexual acts in them, and they're pornographic. As a matter of fact, there was a parent who was reading in front of a school board what the books were talking about. They made them stop because it was so explicit. And the parents like, you don't even want me talking about it here at a school board, but yet you want kids to be able to read this stuff. So so a lot of states are definitely working to remove this pornographic material from the classrooms. Parents are fighting to have it removed from the classrooms, and it's been controversial, and they're calling it the banning of books or book burning, but it's pornographic. It's not even about an opinion or an ideology difference. It's literally pornographic. So this article, the headline, How Teens Benefit from Being Able to Read Disturbing Books That Some Want to Ban. I mean, this is by someone at the University of North Carolina, this article. And I'm not going to read through the article. We have to understand their mindset and how they think. And the media puts this stuff out there too to get people convinced that what's bad is good and what's good is bad. And this is just one example. All right, so I'm just opening up Twitter or X. It's X now. So I found this article through this X post, and this person who posted it makes a really good point. They said, I'm so bored with this narrative. Teens have always had access to these books. You can literally check them out in the library. And that's what I was talking about before. The article says that teens care, that teens don't want these books banned. And so she's right here that teens really don't care. It's adults who are trying to make them care. And it's, again, about activism. That kind of points to that activism that they're trying to do in schools. As a matter of fact, there were protests happening in the last few years to protest different things, whether it was abortion or trans rights or, some kind of thing like that. Literally, K through 12 schools had field trips so kids could go and protest. And that should not be done in our schools. That was off the top of my head. I didn't plan anything or any specific thing to point to. But yeah, so let's see. The next thing is related. So Florida School District did remove 5 books after parents objected to sex, violence, and pedophilia. They definitely are pushing pedophilia too and trying to normalize pedophilia. They're trying to change the definition of pedophilia, calling it minor attracted persons, which is MAPS. They're pushing that in the universities for sure. And these books that are in K through 12 schools are showing pedophilia, basically kids with adults and trying to be comfortable. If you didn't watch our last show on the CIA, where was it the CIA one? No, I don't remember. 2 shows ago, a week ago from last Tuesday, I went through this Planned Parenthood video where they talked about losing your virginity, and what they're telling the kids is you don't lose anything when you lose your virginity. You're actually gaining something, you know? That's a form of indoctrination too. So I just wanted to call this out. But Moms for Liberty, dang, they work hard. They do so much good stuff. But they're the ones that saw the victory in this. And one of the things that they're attacking Moms for Liberty, they're starting to call them an extremist hate group, and the government is depicting them as a hate group. So we've got to get on top of this communistic trend that's happening in our country. And yeah, they're domestic extremists, Moxie. You're right on that. That's what they say. It's really ridiculous, but I've got more on the Moms for Liberty. Here we go. I have actually got an article on that. It was Southern Poverty Law Center that's calling them a hate and anti-government extremist group. So, yes, I too identify as a domestic extremist, Moxie says, and I agree with that. I do too. I do too. Anyway, so yeah, moms, the Moms for Liberty has been doing such good things. They've been targeting school boards. They've been trying to get people onto school boards. So if you have the ability to campaign to be a part of a school board so that you can be a part of stopping this, that's a great way to get involved. All right, I'm going to just continue. The Attorney General of Indiana has been working hard as well and has come up with a parent's Bill of Rights. And I think this is great. I think we need to do this in every state, basically, so that parents have the right to direct their children's education. And what he set up in here is he launched this thing called Eyes on Education. And it's a place where parents can not only access their Bill of Rights, but they could submit items where their rights might be being violated. They can report that. I think it's awesome. I definitely think that that's something that most states need. So if you're in Indiana, I say go Attorney General in that state. Let's push this in other states. Contact your attorney generals in your state. It's just awesome stuff. Related to the civics education that I talked about before. So let me just look at this real quick. Here we go. So they're not teaching kids critical thinking. They're not teaching kids to be able to debate ideas. Instead, they're teaching kids to fight against whatever ideology they consider that's not right. So, interesting here, it says that American college students are increasingly unable to engage in rational public discourse, and that's exactly what they want. Public discourse is what's made up our country, and kids aren't able to even, participate in that. Instead, everything has to be a fight. We have to be divided, all of that. And it's happening because of our schools. They're not teaching how to do discourse. They're not teaching critical thinking skills, how to argue your point, how to come up with a case and actually listen to other people and keep an open mind on things. So an example here, it says, a student graduated from high school. They're capable of answering any and every question about American history and civics on a multiple choice test, but they're unable to have a reasonable conversation about contentious topics. For instance, why the Second Amendment comes before the Third, or whether Lincoln's true goal was emancipation of American slaves or the salvation of the Union, or whether the benefit of American intervention in Europe during the 20th century outweighed the costs. Such a student, while competent in the realm of ideas and knowledge, would also be a neophyte regarding engagement in reasonable debate. It's really, really important that kids are able to do that. We're taught right now to be divided and to not listen to any other side. I think kids need to learn how to do their research and have the knowledge to back up whatever case they're trying to make with someone else. I think it's important because we don't all have to agree on everything, but it's important for schools to teach kids to have that critical thinking and debate skills. Oh, Moxie, you were so proud. Moxie said that her son destroyed his opponent in his Second Amendment debate in school. Awesome. Get your kids involved in debate. I love it. I think that's super healthy for kids. All right. Let's see. One cool thing that's happening is that there was a formal LGBT activist that helps parents. I don't like the term deprogram. But if kids are being brainwashed in schools and they're being indoctrinated, yeah. But there's a former LGBT activist that's helping parents, what they say, deprogram their kids. This is from Glenn Beck. He's got this parental advisory, I don't know what you call it, initiative, I guess you could call it. And I think it's an interesting thing to delve into. I haven't delved too much into his initiative, but he does have he had a whole special on. So this is an hour-long special about the plot to control your kids, but he's got this whole initiative for parental advisory. I'm going to dig into that, and then we'll probably talk about that more in a future show. Yeah, let's, whoops. Here we go. So in California, parents are starting to fight back too. So this is a very recent article just this month. Basically, there are Los Angeles. They all got together March 16th. So that was what, just a week ago, to raise awareness of the secret gender transition of minors, indoctrination at public schools, and infringement on parents' rights. So parents in California are fighting back. If you're in California, it's super critical to get involved in local politics, local school boards, county positions, Department of Education positions in the state. I think this state really needs to get some patriots involved in California, especially around the indoctrination of kids. You know, that's one of the things I think that they think is if they can get to the kids, they only have one generation before they can get their agenda in place. And it's true. So we need to protect the kids. We need to stop the targeting of kids. We need to come up with solutions together as to what can we do besides, you know, the things that I've mentioned here, getting involved in your local government, understanding what your kids are doing at school, or if you can homeschool. You know, there's a lot of different micro solutions, but I feel like we need 100,000 foot view solutions, big agenda item solutions. Rocker Lady 64. Oh, she said, "Hey, Magnolia," but I meant to click this one. I blame the Department of Education. It was created to dumb down our kids. Yeah, it's interesting. The Department of Education, actually, I didn't prep anything for this, but they were formed in the 1970s. And I do you guys think it would be interesting to learn more about how the Department of Education was put in place and who was involved? If so, let me know, and I'll add that to my list of items to cover for these things. Moxie says yes. I didn't say what you said, Moxie. All right, I have to talk about Washington, though, Washington State. They've already put into law some of this stuff. So, all right, I'm going to share my screen. I had to make it big enough for you guys to see. So, there is an LGBTQ education law that was put into law in Washington State. It requires school districts to adopt curriculum that covers inclusive, age-appropriate, whatever that's supposed to mean, materials that tell the histories, contributions, and perspectives of LGBTQ plus ZAB9. I don't know how many more letters are going to add to this. Washingtonians. The contributions of gay Washingtonians deserve recognition, and just as importantly, students deserve to see themselves in their schoolwork. So that is seeing themselves in their schoolwork. This is a whole state law that was adopted. Every school in the state of Washington has to have this curriculum. It's a part of their core curriculum now. So if you live in Washington, I don't know what to say about that. I hope that you get involved, that you run for state office, you get this law reversed. It's ridiculous. All right. I have a lot more, but well, just one more thing is some of the other stuff they're indoctrinating kids in the universities with is professors. And whoops, I meant to keep that up. So they're also having kids weigh in on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And it's pretty rampant at the universities all over the world. It's not just in the United States. It's all over the world. So they're working to have kids be pro-Palestinian, and I'm not going to say, like, for me, I don't like violence, period. I don't like war, period. I think it was wrong, for Hamas to go in and do those atrocities they did. I also don't like war. So, but I'm going to stay pretty neutral on that. But, Rocker Lady, the state of Washington is the same. They are in so much trouble. They are teaching sex ed to kindergartners. Oh my gosh. It's sick. Thanks to mail in voting, it got voted in. So here's the thing, these elections, there's a lot of shenanigans going on in elections, and that's so they can pass laws like this. That's actually what I was talking about, Rocker Lady. I was talking about the state of Washington for that new law. That was in the state of Washington. Yeah, there's so much going on. So I'm just, this is just touching the surface of the indoctrination. I wanted to kind of give an overview of the background, the history, kind of what's happened since COVID, and some solutions. And in future episodes, where I continue to talk about indoctrination, because I'm not only going to talk about indoctrination in this targeting the innocent, there's so much more. But I will delve into details. We'll dive into, do deep dives into one particular subject, one particular area. Magnolia, heartbreaking what is happening to the indoctrination education in the state of Washington. It is heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking. So with that, I'm actually going to pull Moxie in, see if she has any closing thoughts, and we'll talk about what our next Questions Worth Pondering show will be about. Hey, Moxie.
Hey,
How are you today?
I'm awesome.
You are awesome.
It's been an insane week for me. I've been on the run pretty much every day, so I got to slow down just a little bit today, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really nice and slow today, which is cool. And then I get to sit back and watch you do your thing. And
Yeah. Well, do you have any thoughts on what I covered so far?
I fell down some rabbit holes while you were talking. And
Oh, did you?
I
want to
did.
hear. I want to hear about the rabbit holes you fell down.
So I went down deep into the Ibram Kendi stuff.
Did
I
you?
sent you a screenshot of the quote that I was thinking, or that I had been referencing.
Oh, okay. Let me pull it up. Hang on. Did you send it to me on Telegram?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I'll pull this up. Where is my, let me just add this back to the stage and open this. Sorry, it just takes me a little minute. It takes me a hot minute. All right, talk us through this, Moxie.
So I'm going to read it out loud because I don't think it needs too much more explanation.
Okay.
The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination.
Oh my gosh.
As President Lyndon B. Johnson said in 1965, you do not take a person who, for years, has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bring him up to the starting line of a race, and then say, you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair. As a U.S. Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun wrote in 1978, in order to get beyond racism, we must first take account of race. There is no other way, and in order to treat some persons equally, we must treat them differently.
Wow, that was a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah. And then I started
Radical.
falling down, like I wanted to look up the Supreme Court justice, but then I'm like, no, I really need to pay attention to what Nev's is saying.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
I kind of want to follow
crazy.
that down the rabbit hole and make a show out of it eventually.
Definitely. Definitely. We'll have that in our future shows. Wow. Wow. Well, thanks for going down that rabbit hole.
I tried to not go so deep, and I stopped myself because I realized I wasn't paying attention to you.
I have to tell you guys, Moxie is a master live digger. You have a question, she'll go find out.
Yeah, did you know that the O.J. Simpson trial ran for 11 months? I looked that up.
I knew it was long. I thought it was longer than that, actually.
Yeah,
So.
It started in 94 and went to October of 95.
Yeah, that's when. So I kind of gave my age away when I talked about my daughter.
I gave mine away too because I remember talking about it in 4th grade when I was 10.
Oh my goodness! So you're like close to my daughter's age.
The teacher had taken, like the Sun and the Inquirer and all those rags that are right by the checkout line in the grocery store. She had those up on the wall. Like, she had taken the pictures off and the covers off and put them up on the wall for us to like read current events. And
Seriously.
looking back, I'm like, what in the world? Like, I knew my mom bought the gossip magazines, but like, why were they at my school?
Yeah, that's crazy. So this is interesting. In Washington, you can only homeschool your child if they have advanced degree. It's another thing that's so wrong. So that's interesting. If you live in Washington, holy moly, you can't even homeschool your child? Like, yeah, they don't own the children. Sorry. If I was a parent in Washington, I probably would go all the way to the Supreme Court if I could on that one.
Absolutely.
That's ridiculous. So anyway, so that kind of ends the show for today. I hope you guys are enjoying that content. If so, please subscribe and like our video because then it will get out to more people. We want to get this exposure out to as many as possible. And I loved hanging out with you guys again. I love doing it live because I was considering recording these types of this particular segment, but I love having all of our friends here and chatting with you guys. So
the live feedback is awesome, and then you don't have to spend hours editing.
It's true. It's true. The live feedback is it's great. It's just a different energy. I like it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me for this part 2 of our podcast. I ran out of time last time, and I actually took a lot of time for this anyway. So, what are we going to talk about on Tuesday's show?
Did we decide that?
Yes.
My brain hasn't woken up yet today.
Well, likely current events, but we're going to be talking about what's trending, like on social media platforms. Yeah, talking about trends on social media platforms. And I'm not sure what I'm going to cover on the targeting our children or targeting the innocent segment yet. I'm still debating whether that should just be a separate show, just because I have a lot that I want to cover. But more to come on that. All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Saturday. See ya. Bye.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all